Welcome to Seven Figure Chiro, the podcast that is all about taking your chiropractic practice to new financial heights. We're your hosts, Dr. Jeff and Kristin Berard.
And twice a month, we are here to share the insider strategies, tools, and success stories that will help you scale your chiropractic practice to 7 figures and beyond.
Whether you're at the start of your journey as an associate or you're ready to take your practice to the next level, we've got expert interviews, strategies, and inspiring stories from chiropractors who have turned their dreams into a reality.
So get ready to take your chiropractic practice to a new level, and let's crush your vision for success.
Well, hello. Welcome to Seven Figure Chiro Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff Berard, along here with Kristin.
Hello.
Welcome. We are on episode 5. So a quick recap with episode 4 is, number 1, communicating your hedgehog concept to the community and making sure your team has a clear description on how to communicate that hedgehog concept to clients and customers, and also the providers as well as the team members in your office, that they have a clear understanding and message of how that hedgehog concept is communicated to the clients and patients. Number 2, recap with episode 4 was construct treatment plans that support your hedgehog concept and your BHAG, that hairy, audacious goal. And number 3 is know your cost and margins on your treatment plans. And this will allow you to start some forecasting, some financial forecasting your key performance indicators and whatnot. Having constructed your treatment plans and all the nuances, the costs, the margins, etc., now we have to provide your team with a standard. And very, very few chiropractors use these SOPs, the dreaded SOPs, the standard operating procedures. There needs to be a document of everything you do in your office and what the standard operating procedure is for those procedures. Most chiropractors do not use these. And when Kristin started to implement SOPs, by the way, this is essential if you start to get up in revenue. I mean, you have to do it. Otherwise, you won't get up in revenue. You have to have this in place. If there's not a standard, you can't build. So you have to, as you start to really increase in those high revenue numbers, there has to be more procedures and policies in place to facilitate that growth. So this isn't fun to do. It's not, most people don't even see the hard work that's put into standard operating procedures, but it's a foundation that you must have. And the beauty is when you create something in your office, a policy, a procedure, these treatment plans, these models, you document it and you're building these SOPs as you grow. And then before you know it, you have a manual for your clinic that has an operating procedure for every single thing you do. So when you have new hires that come on, now here they have a manual they can look at and they can see how to do everything. So if you lose that, and we've all been there, right? You lose that one office person that knows everything and the chiropractor knows nothing. You're really screwed. So by having these SOPs, no one's holding you hostage. You don't have any team members holding you hostage. Everything is documented how it's done. What you need to do for an SOP, if you don't have a standard, then there will never be consistency with anything in your office. So let me talk about in my office a little bit, and I'll have Kristin expand because she documented most of these procedures. There's an SOP in my office for treatment plans. Why do we do it? How do we do it? The time spent on certain services. We have an SOP for communicating to patients. When a patient walks in the door in a treatment room, you greet them, you treat them, you educate them, and you give them hope, right? That's in our SOP, so that every single doctor that engages with a patient in a treatment room, they make sure that those things are done. They're not there to talk about their dog. They're not there to talk about, this project they're working on home. They're there to greet them, treat them, educate them, and give them hope each and every time. We have an SOP for documentation standards. How do you document what you do? You have to have a standard for that, or else, your office is going to be like the wild, wild west and everyone's going different directions. And you get audited and all of a sudden you're like, oh gosh, I didn't know they were doing that. Been there, done that too. We have a SOP for every support staff. Every support staff has an SOP and they know what their job is, what they're expected of, what their duties are each and every day. It gives them direction on what to do when there's downtime, so they're not wasting your time and money or their time. We have an SOP for how to process a patient from the first call to when the patient leaves the office. What's that look like? We have an SOP for payments. How is payments made? Different forms of payment. What's our standard operating procedure for people who can't pay? We have a standard operating procedure for how we handle missed appointments, how you order imaging. Are you going to order an MRI? Do you not have imaging facilities in your clinic? Okay, so what's the standard operating procedure for doing that? An SOP for requested days off. How many times has a team member told you, hey, so-and-so, in 3 months, I'm going to take this off, and you forget, right? So you have to have an SOP so everything is documented and your team members know how to go through the process so that it's standard. We have an SOP on, when you arrive, you got to arrive early, when you leave for the day, how each team member closes for the day, what are the duties they need to do before they leave. So this is the organization framework. An SOP is how your business operates. And if you don't have that, you're not going to get to seven figures. It's imperative to have standard operating procedures. Kristin, since you're the organization guru in our business, do you want to touch on SOPs since you love them so much?
I don't love SOPs so much, but guess what? It's part of growing a really successful business. And I will say that, when you have a small team of like 4 to 5 people and you're working together on a daily basis, there is a minimal amount of policies and procedures that you really need because you're with each other on a daily basis, constantly communicating, and it's not as easy for stuff to get missed or forgotten about if there's a very, very small team. Now, I will say, because we are in a healthcare setting, standard operating procedures are very important when it comes to the healthcare laws and employment laws, those types of things. So even if you're employing, let's say you have a front desk administrator and maybe a massage therapist and a chiropractic assistant. So that would be 4 of you in a clinic setting. I would say that there are some minimal standard operating procedures that you should have on hand and review on a yearly basis. And some of those things are making sure that you have standard operating procedures meeting the OIG standards, HIPAA regulations, anti-kickback, Stark law. Those specific things are going to be healthcare setting based. And then also some employment policies that can kind of, make sure that you're covered with any team members that you hire, and even if they do or don't work out, you always kind of have backup because it's been documented and they've all looked at them, reviewed them, and then you have them sign things to make sure that you have documented that they actually visually saw it, and then you reviewed it.
Regardless of the size of your clinic, what Kristin is saying is being in a healthcare setting, you have to meet a certain standard of compliancy for federal and state laws when it comes to employment, when it comes to providing healthcare. Even if you're a one-man show or one-lady show, there's things that you have to do, and that's where those SOPs are standard for everyone, regardless of the size of your clinic or the revenue you do, correct? That's what you're implying.
Yeah, and there are some great tools that are out there, and also we can help you with that as well if you communicate with us. We use specific companies in order to obtain the correct information that we need as far as a chiropractic setting goes and physical therapy, because different healthcare businesses have different healthcare rules, and also the way that the business is set up, whether it's a corporation or an LLC, there's different rules with those types of things. But then we have, making sure that each service provider or employee is operating properly on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year basis, and how they communicate with patients, right? So you want to make sure that they're communicating in the way that you as a business owner want them to communicate. So these are all, they're not going to be pages and pages and pages long. They're kind of a summary of how you set up the rules and how you want them to implement those policies and rules in your clinic setting. So it's not going to be 10-page paper like you wrote when you were in college. That's not a standard operating procedure. These are basic things that are outlined so that if somebody's looking for information about a specific subject, whether how to communicate with a patient or how to handle funds, billing, healthcare law, it gives them an opportunity to be able to go and look at that and understand how to execute that within your business.
What I found most helpful having an SOP is when you have new team members that come on board, it's kind of like a built-in training manual. So what's really important, especially with new, if you bring in an associate or if you're an associate, you can look at this SOP to see exactly how the primary doctor, the owner expects care to be, how they expect the care to be delivered, how and when they order imaging, all the different standards so that you can replicate the best you can with those SOPs, how the office is run. So I find that to be the most valuable for chiropractors is training team members to integrate into the system seamlessly instead of, going back and they made a mistake and, no, this is how you should do it. We have them go through these SOPs so they have a clear understanding and they can go off to the races, on day one when they start seeing patients or they start running the front desk or be your assistant. They know exactly the standard operating procedures.
Yeah, and I will say that the way that we have developed SOPs is kind of the inside out. So we started with the most basic, important thing with the healthcare law and then employment law. And then we kind of went from there, what do we need in order for all of our team members to understand how to work clinic and with patients? And then it's everything from, marketing, how to go out and market the business. And then some of the most recent things that we've had to deal with are making sure that those who are post social media are following the correct rules as well. Because when you are in a healthcare setting, you have to be very careful of those HIPAA laws and making sure that, the patient health information is always left out of things. And then you learn a lot of different things as well. So, sometimes it's nice to get in contact with organizations that have a lot of these SOPs already created. And then all you have to do is go through them and kind of filter through them which one you would need for your clinic and your setting. And then you can build off of them rather than we created, I think, almost every single SOP from scratch. And it was really customized to our clinic and our setting. But if you're a smaller clinic, or even if you're a clinic that doesn't have SOPs, it's great to just start somewhere. And it's super important because, like Jeff said, you might have that employee that you thought was going to be with you forever, and all of a sudden they have put in their 2 weeks notice and you don't have enough time to get somebody in and trained with that person, right? So you're going to have to still continue to operate your business and then get that person trained at the same time. And the best way to get them to understand how to work within your organization is standard operating. I mean, it's all in writing. And if they have questions, they always have something to go back. And then I would recommend that you always review them on a yearly basis. So going through, spending some time on a yearly basis, it doesn't have to be you, but somebody who understands the operations and the policies of the clinic to go through all of the SOPs and change anything that's necessary, get rid of SOPs that aren't necessary. Maybe there are some new things that you've talked about through the year that maybe you need new SOPs and you've added them and things have changed. And then, kind of going through them with your employees and the highlight that you think are the most important for them that they would come across throughout the year. And then making sure they always have some sort of way of accessing these, whether it's through an online portal or they're printed, and then create an employee handbook. That's my most recent accomplishment. I created a ginormous employee handbook so that when new employees come in, it's just super easy to understand all the positions in the clinic and understand our mission statement and our core values. And then also gives them an easy in to seeing all of the SOPs for their specific position. And then also the SOPs that belong to everybody in the organization. So I pride myself in, making sure that we run a very sound clinic and following all the rules. I'm a rule follower.
Yeah. So there's, with the SOPs, one of the things that is really nice is, in our business, kind of the good cop, Kristin's the bad cop. So, I have team members that come to me and they ask for things. And of course, I always want to say yes, but having an SOP, you can always default to that. Check the SOP for days off. And, if it falls within our standing operating procedures, I'm all for it. If it doesn't, unfortunately, we can't because everyone else has to be held to that same standard. So I hope you can understand. So please look at the SOP and follow, our operating procedure when it comes to time off. You can always defer to that.
Yeah. And one thing I will say is if you're new to SOPs and you don't know where to start, you can reach out to us. But also if you're familiar with using ChatGPT, if you understand what an SOP looks like. So you maybe do some research, or we can send you some samples of what an SOP would look like. It would give you a good idea of, you can make a list of things that you need to have policies and procedures for. And ChatGPT can help you create those SOPs for your organization. And then you can just go through what ChatGPT creates for your organization, since SOPs are pretty standardized across the board with so many different corporations and organizations. And then you could edit them just for your organization based on the specific, and it will be a time saver. And then you don't have to redo these on a yearly basis. Like I said, you're just reviewing them on a yearly basis and making any changes that maybe came across, employment law, healthcare law, or, just things that you want to change within your office. And it will be so much easier once you get it started and get it done. It's the starting part, and it's the mundane task of having to complete these things that seems very daunting, but I promise you it will actually save you so much time in the long run, because you won't be answering the same questions over and over and over again, and you'll always have a resource.
I get asked all the time from colleagues in the profession, how we do what we do. And gosh, you guys do so well. You see so many people, you do a lot of revenue, you have this great building, you have all these 30 plus team members, and, our names all over the place. And at the end of the day, I know these topics aren't super exciting, but that's why we are who we are. It's not, all about what we do as clinicians. It's about how we do it and how we standardize everything we do. And that's why we've gone through these, the prior 4 episodes, is to build a lattice for you listeners so that you can create that same level of success, having standards in what you do, everything from communication to all the policies and procedures in your office. So take the time now. Trust me, you'll thank us later when you do it. It's a pain in the butt. It takes time, it takes thought, it takes organization. But once you have that there, it's there, for perpetuity. All you need to do is adjust it when things in your office changes and you change policies. So take the time, create SOPs for everything you can so that there's a standard, and your clinic's office manual will be on its way to developing, and you'll have an amazing manual that has everything in front of you. So when you lose these valuable team members, you're not left in the lurch. So that's how you build a 7-figure chiro practice, is you have to have standards.
One more thing. When you are looking to expand your practice and, you're striving for this 7-figure practice, you have to be a desirable location for people to want to work. And nobody wants to work for a disorganized organization. And if the organization is disorganized, the employees see it really, really quick. And if you're looking for really high, successful, high producing employees and team members, those people are going to expect standard operating procedures because they need something to fall back on. And they want to make sure that all the time and energy that they're putting into their job and into their work has a reward just like everybody else. And it's going to be very hard for you to be successful as a business and for your employees if you don't have policies and procedures, and you will not grow. A lot of these organizations who they start to gain a lot of momentum and traction, and they start to do really well. And what happens is, because they don't have a lot of these policies and procedures in place, it only takes one bad thing for it to plummet, that whole entire organization, and for people to leave and not want to be a part of it anymore. And I will say that when you have a solid administrative understanding of your business, and you don't have to hire a full-time person to do the administrative stuff. There's a lot of help out there and a lot of consultants that can help with some of these pieces that maybe you may not be great at, but they are very essential to growing a 7-figure practice and having it continue to grow and be successful.
Kristin and I talked to a lot of different chiropractors all over the nation, and it is baffling to me how many of them don't know such basic procedures in their office. I'll give you an example. I know a doc who doesn't even know the name of the system they use, the EMR system. There's docs out there that have no clue what codes they bill. They don't know what charges they bill for those codes. They don't know their standard for numbers, like what their standard is for new patients, what their standard is for reactivations, what their profit margins are on a visit. And we want to change that. And if this resonates with you, and if you're one of those people, which there's a good chance you are, because most chiros are, and that's what we're trying to educate on, is please reach out to sevenfigurechiro.com. There's a contact us section in there, and we'd be more than happy to give you a solid infrastructure so that you can gain control of your office, of your business. And that's where it becomes fun, because everything is predictable at that point. I know, because I've been there. You know, we have a really good month and then you have a terrible month and you don't know why. Well, having this infrastructure, you will know exactly why. And not only will you know exactly why, you'll know it's going to happen before it happens, so you can augment, you can make changes so that you don't take those dips. That's why we have all this in place. So go to sevenfigurechiro.com. Contact us if you need some help. We'd be more than happy to help you in any fashion that you need. We're at the end of our 5th episode. Our next episode, don't miss this one. This one is super important. We're going to talk about some key performance indicators. That is the pulse of your business, and it is what's going to drive the success to heights that you can't imagine. So, as your host, Dr. Jeff Berard, along with Kristin, I want to thank you for listening and tune in for our episode 5 on key performance indicators. Until next time, keep up the good fight.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Seven Figure Chiro.
We hope you're walking away with some valuable insights to apply to your practice.
Remember, building a 7-figure practice doesn't happen overnight, but with the right strategies and mindset, it's absolutely within your reach.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow chiropractors who are on the same path.
And be sure to join us the next episode for more strategies, bring clarity to your vision, and elevate your financial practice to success.
Until then, keep pushing forward and making an impact.